Welcome to the Lair, a place where interesting people you may know tell you things you didn't. So grab a chair and your favorite vice and get comfortable. There are no rules in the Lair, but there is Laura Babcock. You know her from TV, and she is not into media monogamy. Let's find out who else is in the Lair.
Okay, for those of you who listen to the Laircast and who don't live in Ward 2, what actually they're referring to was the 20-odd people who ran for Ward 2 in the last municipal election, because it was really one of the first times in Hamilton you could even get a crack at the daylight of city council, because our incumbents happened to live there forever. So you had 20 good people, well, okay, 10 good people out of 20, who were five, all right, running for office, and it was quite a fight. It was quite a fight between Jay Farr and Matt Jelly and Martin. How do you prefer it said?
Martinus.
Yeah. And there were a couple other people. Who else rounded out the top five?
Eric Hess.
Yeah, he had a big following.
Eric Hess, myself.
James Novak, that's right.
Yeah, but
so
he wasn't top five.
No, you're right, but
although he wasn't in the top five, Marvin Kaplan did most of the rounding.
I've
never heard of him. Who's this Marvin Kaplan?
Who's this guy?
Yeah, but Laura, let me correct you on something.
Please do.
If you're going to throw Martinus into that crazy 20-man race, you're wrong. Martinus put his hat in the ring before the mayor put his hat in the ring for mayor. So it was going to be Martinus against Bertina.
Right.
Because that was a surprise that Bob jumped.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
The Martinus was the only candidate before the shit show of everybody running.
So why
there.
the hate on? Because you were not officially helping another candidate who was running against
The hate
you?
on for who?
For Martin. You guys
Of course not.
You
No,
started
not
a
at
whole
all.
thing with,
Not at
you
all.
said I'm going to put malice in your mustard. What did you mean?
No, to be honest, I was
So
never.
our studio audience just said, how can you hate on Martinez? He's so good looking. Yeah, he's not a bad looking individual.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Personally, I'm glad this is audio only. So no, but
So
I
we
mean,
can't
you're
see blushing?
absolutely right. I had not intended to ever run against virtually or almost any of the 20 at all. My intent was actually to run against Bob Bertina and replace him in Ward 2. At the time, there was Shane Coleman declared, and there was Hu Jung Jones declared.
Yeah.
And and there were I think one or two others from the North End, but they weren't significant contenders based on our research. And so we said, hey, the field's pretty much open. If we declare and we run a really, really tight campaign, he's probably beatable.
So you're a serious candidate with a serious campaign, and then it turned into...
Well, it turned into a circus.
A circus. I was going to say cluster, but a circus is a nicer word. Turned into a circus. But there was, I felt, more serious candidates in Ward 2 than in the mayor's run. I mean, other than the three top people in the mayor's run, nobody knew who these other people were. Yeah. In Ward 2, you had a whole bunch of talent. Yeah. So I almost felt as though it was kind of a waste to have all of you...
As Jelly wouldn't have run against Bertina. Farr wouldn't have run against Bertina.
So suddenly you had all these qualified candidates running against each other.
Marvin wouldn't have run against Bertina.
Right. Yeah. So you had all these people, qualified people running in Ward 2. So to get back to my initial question about the opening salvos, is there any lingering vitriol, gentlemen? Is there anything we need to, clear the air with?
Absolutely not, as far as I'm concerned.
No. Okay. So we've established you are friends. I mean, you can be malicious if you choose to be. That's your...
I didn't...
No, Lauren and I had a...
Well, he said he was going to put malice in his mustard. I just want to understand the reference.
Lauren and I got it all out of the way, and this was at the beginning of the race, and we were both at Augusta House, and I was inside...
No, Lauren was not involved in Ward 2 officially, Rob.
Thank you.
But Lauren is a pundit.
Working as a campaign manager for anybody.
Lauren was punditing at the time, so I was inside Augusta House. Lauren was hanging out on the patio, and someone came inside and said, "Hey, Lauren wants to have a word with you." So,
Lauren who? Who's that guy?
Okay,
Never heard of him. What?
I was like, oh, yeah, I know Lauren.
We know each other.
We go way back.
Yeah, that's right. Did he have his big black truck with him?
Yeah. No, so I made my way out in the patio, and we were just kicking off a campaign, so I was there with a few of our campaign team. We're all amped up, we're all excited, we're all dressed to the nines, we're like, well, we're gonna win Ward 2, it's great. And so we go outside, and and walk down the steps, and I'm in a full suit. It's like
Nice.
11:30, 12 o'clock, middle of the night. I'm all like, "Oh, look at me, I'm a politician." And I walk down the steps, and Lauren's there, and he's like, "Hey, you're gonna lose." That's all he said.
It was a little. I found it stunning as to why it is that you would venture a serious campaign
You're such a
against
bully.
Martina.
You're such a bully.
Not a bully.
You're a bully. That's
Not
a
a
total
bully.
bully vintage move. The guy's all dressed up and excited and happy and fully participating in civic life.
I was excited because I thought, oh, goody, some opposition, right?
Yeah,
this is the
you're
first
thinking-
opposition, because
you're
until
thinking
this
is going to
point,
be a serious guy on the other side having a serious conversation with you, and then
But
you
I
meet
was
Lauren Lee-
host.
Then you meet
right?
I don't have much to contribute
In his
other than
defense-
the base fact of your ass is grass.
He was host.
Of course he was host. It was
and-
after midnight. We already established that.
And I was kind of excited because until that point, everyone had just been, "Oh, it's so good that you're running for office. Isn't that delightful? This is fantastic. You're gonna win. Good for you." And then the first guy, "You're gonna lose," and it was like, okay, the campaign's on.
See what I love about Lauren Lieberman? Every Tuesday, man, I get that crap. So he set the real tone of the whole thing. He took it from being an exercise in political playmaking to
Yeah.
the
I
real
didn't
deal.
say I want you to lose.
Well, and no, but he was, but Lauren Lieberman
No
was
one
right.
would get that suggestion.
He was
He's-
right.
He always is.
I did lose.
But why did you lose?
I lost
Surely not because he's the oracle of municipal politics.
Oh, goodness,
If
no.
that's the case, I'm moving.
No, I would have thanked Alexander Keith at that point. But no, this was
Nice.
no. I mean, Jim Beam, Alexander Keith, we all go way back.
yeah,
All
but
my friends.
yeah,
Because of the
but
host thing, yeah, we
but
get
no, I mean, I lost because I ended up running the race, running in a different election than I declared in.
Okay.
I had declared against Bob Bertina.
Right.
And they ended up running against Jay Farr and Matt Jelly.
Right. So you had his record to challenge, and then that record suddenly was gone.
Well, that's right. I mean, we'd essentially prepared to go after Bob. I mean, looking beyond that, I lost because there were good candidates with real clout in the area, and I was relatively new to Ward 2.
So for people who are tuning in, we're talking to Martinus Geleynse, because I usually your first name, because there's not a lot of Martinuses hanging around Hamilton politics.
I just go by that.
Yeah, but
to be
other people out of
honest.
town
Yeah.
don't know that. And I can't spell or pronounce your last name, so that's why I go with Martinus.
Geleynse, like Mackenzie.
Is it Geleynse?
Yes.
See,
there
he
you
was
go.
following my
He
campaign.
was. Oh my God.
He's following you.
Yeah, he was. You have no idea how much Lauren knows about everybody. If I meet somebody, I'm like, Lauren, who's this person? He pulls out like the dossier. He's like the FBI of Hamilton. He truly is.
Graham Crawford, you say? Give me a moment.
He does. He'll know what you make, where you're from, your lineage, your skeletons. The guy knows everything about everybody. I rely on this stuff. It's great.
Well, he's a conservative, right?
No, he's a conservative, exactly.
He's like J. Edgar.
He is.
That's the word
With better
In
lingerie.
every way, yeah, exactly. So, Martinez, so for people who don't know you, and I've gotten to know you a little bit better even preparing for this Laircast, you're, not an anomaly. There are young people who are business owners who do decide to delve into the abyss of civic politics, which I admire, right?
Yeah.
But you have always had this in your blood. I read something where you said that at the age of 10, I think, or 12, you had created your own nation, complete with economic systems, with parliamentary systems, with a culture. Who does that at 12?
I was a loser. I openly admit this. No,
Oh my God! The women from One Concept here are gonna come over and kiss you soon if you keep this up. Listen to that.
No,
it's so cute.
What's the name of the nation?
The nation was actually called Atlantis. I tried to revive Atlantis, and it had 215 million people because I wanted it to be smaller than America and larger than Canada, larger than Germany, and
Wow.
somewhere in the middle of the EU size. But the idea here was it was myself and my brother and my two
See,
sisters.
Lauren
and
didn't do any research for this interview.
and
He's
you
looking at
can't
like,
research
"What the hell are
this.
you?"
This is
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, it's on construction paper, and I have it all at home under lock and key. But my siblings and I, well, essentially me, and then I imposed it on my poor younger siblings. We designed a continent, and we designed these different countries, and we yeah, we literally design countries. I mean, they're
But-
totally
but-
conceptual, and there's no
But what I
value
loved
to
about
this
it was that
whatsoever.
you had the parliamentary system, which every kid who wants to be a UN debater does.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you had the economic systems and the cultural systems to boot.
Absolutely.
So you design, but okay, so you say absolutely, but. You know, if you looked at Baba Booey's eyes over here, he's looking at you like you're some kind of a circus freak.
Yeah.
But I
Loser. I was
think
a
that's amazingly complex. And you say you're a loser, but I don't think so. Maybe I'm a loser too, but I look at it and I say that's a whole lot of thinking and strategic thinking for somebody that young. And then you lived in Michigan, you lived in Europe, you've lived in different places
traveled
in Canada.
Europe. I didn't live in Europe.
Yeah, well, but you know, and you also had one of your films at the Nuremberg Film Festival, am I correct? And you won something there. So you're not a guy who's never been out of his basement. You have a tremendous amount of experience and a different perspective on things. And at the age of 12, to create your own nation, I mean, we have people in this room who are visionaries. We talked to Graham Crawford in the earlier Lair cast. Clearly, the man knows about vision statements. We've got Monica here, who runs One Concept, which is a global environmental phenomenon for progressive health providers. She's a visionary. You can't talk to Monica without hearing about it. I mean, there are people in this room who truly are visionaries. And you made a statement, Monica, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. I know you do. You love him because he's cute and because, you know, you feel bad for him. But I know. But you know what you also love? You'll love this. I read a statement where you said, I'd rather have a dream than a plan, because if you have a plan, as soon as things go awry, you'll leave the plan. But if you have a vision, it guides you through changing plans, and you adjust, and you know. I thought that was, or you said when you have a dream, it's kind of supersedes a plan.
You were reading an old blog, I think.
I was. I was
wrote,
reading an old interview you did in the Hamiltonian, 10 Tough Questions for Martinus.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that was like 3 years ago.
But you know what? It was the quote that said, because I'm so used to saying to my clients, a dream is great, but if you don't have a plan, the dream ends up being something you talk about to the detriment of everybody who knows you for
On the
50
Lair
years.
chat.
Right?
Embraces change, and I love
Yeah,
that.
but see what I'm saying is that if all you do is dream, then it can get annoying. So I always say to my clients, you got to have a dream and a plan to make it happen. But what I loved was you said actually the dream is more important than the plan, because the plan's always going to fall by the wayside. The dream is sort of a guiding catalyst for everything else.
Yeah.
Interesting comment.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've always been very conceptual, and you know, going way back, you know, talking about designing this country and stuff like that when I was a little kid.
That little thing he did at 12.
You think he'd be embarrassed and leave it alone?
Well, no, because it's all.
Back to it we go.
There's more embarrassment on the way.
What are you doing at 12, Lauren?
But there-
Just to give us a juxtaposition here. What were you up to?
Juvie.
Yeah, you're. Lauren was in juvenile detention, and you were creating a country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, part and parcel with that was I had this, I was like, this is going back to like a really little kid, like literally age 5 to age 10, and then I designed the country because I got tired of doing this. I had designed this company in my mind called Martinus Makes. And it was an all-powerful corporation that would build cars and planes and boats and pretty much everything that Dr. Seuss believed could move. And so I would draw them. This is largely because I grew up, these years I spent on Prince Edward Island. And we had an old television with bunny ears and a dial that went ka-dunk, ka-dunk, ka-dunk every time you turned the channel from CBC to CTV broadcast in black and white because that's all we got.
Yeah.
So,
Terrifying.
you know, aside from the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday nights, we were not allowed to watch television. There was no television to watch because we were 5, 6, 7 years old. And so, I mean, the one line that comes back to me as a kid that my parents would always say, go do something creative, go do something constructive. And constructive and creative were always interchangeable. And so we did. So my mom made sure the television was rarely available, but construction paper and pencils and paper were, and staples and scissors, and it was everywhere. And we had a whole room dedicated to just doing stuff. And so we would sit in this room and we'd design stuff. And so I designed boats and planes and cars and trucks and a supercar that could fly and go underwater and everything. And you know, my grandfather wanted to buy one. He was my first order, but it was going to cost $1 million. He never made $1 million, and I never made the car. So, but the point is,
believers in you.
yeah. But the point is, it was always driven by this idea that if you can dream it, you can do it. And there was never a plan of how I was going to make the car. I was just going to make the car. I don't know how I'm going to make a supercar. I don't know the science behind things that fly or things that go underwater, but I can draw my dream and it looks really cool and I want to have that and that guy wants to order it. So, you know, as I got older, that got a little more complex and the reality started setting in that obviously, you know, there's a certain realm of reality that we all dwell in, unfortunately. And these dreams had to somehow be rooted in something or therefore be implementable. And that's where, you know, this country came into effect where I thought, you know what, I'm going to actually design a whole world in which my dreams can happen. And then, and I was never homeschooled. I mean, I was going to school, I was interacting with my peers, so I wasn't in any way, you know,
why did you add that in?
Sheltered from society because I've been asked.
I'm going, okay, this sounds really super cool, and then you're like, and I wasn't homeschooled.
No, I
like,
just
you
no.
throw the crazy caveat in there.
Well,
Say it sounded like he was at the same meeting as Graham was.
You guys running cartoon posters?
no, one of our writers, Lydia Loverick, would probably write a column on this, and she'd probably, you know, have a whole bunch to say about homeschooling. But that's totally not the point. The point was I was very much interacting with society. I wasn't shut in a basement. I wasn't, you know, like a captive in this room that my parents provided with me, or for me. It was just our safe space. And so eventually these dreams kept going with me through school and through university, and then I came back to Hamilton here, and ultimately, you know, when you're piss poor broke, you have absolutely nothing. You don't know anyone. You're in this big city and you're living in a free room on Hamilton Mountain with nothing but a dream.
So what are
It's the most important thing you have.
What are we dreaming today? Come on.
Are you dreaming tonight?
Yeah. Today, tonight, now. What dreams do you not have plans for?
I've grown to the point now, Lauren, where dreams are now accompanied with plans. But the dream and thing, you know, I would substitute dream with vision or dream with you know, some of these other words, because I mean a dream sounds rather ethereal, but it's not. A dream. I mean, growing up as a kid, if you could realize your greatest dreams, wouldn't that be the ultimate?
I did.
Like, wouldn't that be it?
I did not.
You did not?
Well, and you
Okay,
look angry, and she looks happy. So
exactly.
I'm gonna go with Laura on this
Oh,
one.
hey, I had two dreams, modest though some might think they were. One was to be a television personality, somebody who spoke on TV, because I loved communication. I was fascinated with it as a child. And the other was to be a teacher, and I'm pretty much a highly paid teacher as a consultant, right?
There you go. Yeah.
And those were the two things I wanted to do. I wanted to communicate. I'm of childhood geekdom like you. I would go to school the first day of class, and I'd go home, go in front of the mirror, get a hairbrush in the bathroom, and I would redo what the teacher should have said to gain the engagement of the class. Jesus. I swear to God, you've never heard this story before? I would sit there and I would go, if the teacher had only said this and this, we would respect her. If she'd used her time this way, and now I get paid a lot of money to tell people how to do that stuff.
You know what,
Exactly.
Martinus? Thank Laura. You don't sound like the childhood weirdo anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God. And my dad was a minister, so put it all together.
Mine
It's a
too.
pretty
There we
picture.
go.
See, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We're both, your dad was a Calvinist, mine a fundamentalist.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
both have our issues. There's a reason we had safe rooms with creative tools, let me tell you.
Paper and dull scissors.
Yeah, we were surviving. But let me put it this way. What you're saying exactly true is that I knew I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I've managed to make that happen with my life. And so at the end of every day, I go home and go, gee, I hope I don't die tomorrow, but if I do, I've got no complaints. You know, it's a
Yeah.
nice way to live.
Yeah, and you know, it's just about putting yourself out there. And I just had a whole conversation yesterday with Nina, my girlfriend, actually, about the value of a safe space. And if you have a safe space, you know, people who support you and say that is like totally bullshit, but that is fine.
Yeah.
That's not to be underestimated. That's really, really powerful. And I think, I mean, I can get into a whole thought about parenting here, but, you know, if I think about the way that we tend to try to ground people in reality from an early age, because that's the realm they got to live in. Oh boy, you know, it's just going to hit them hard someday. Reality will hit them hard. Yeah, of course it will, but that's fine, because when reality hits you hard, what are you going to go home to? You're going to go home to your dreams, and you're going to go home to your happy place. I mean, as you know, put it Happy Gilmore, but you're going to go to a place where you think, you know what, okay,
and beer steins and
yeah, you know, that was rough. Like
Fountains.
I just got, and I got fired once. I got fired from a job,
Yeah.
you know, because I was really awful at serving fish and chips. So I got fired.
I got fired as a waitress too.
That hurt.
It's weird, dude.
That really hurt. But I went home
weird.
and I thought, oh, crap, I got fired. I suck. What am I going to do? I don't know. I'm going to become an actor. So that year I went out and got the lead role in the school play.
Oh my God! I was the lead in my school play. I was. I was.
Stop,
I swear to
stop.
God, I
We're
swear to God.
kindred-
I
we're
was
kindred
Miss Cratch.
spirits,
No,
Laura.
you know what? I was Miss Cratch in the school play in grade 2, and then I was the lead in my university play at Redeemer. I was the lead in Crimes of the Heart. Yeah,
There you
so
go.
it's weird. So the only difference was my house. There was no really safe place. But I take your point.
Well, the point is,
What's
yeah.
that? Or construction paper. You know, I used to watch Mr. Dress Up and say, "Oh my God, I would kill for scissors and paper that sounded like that." He had the best craft
did.
tools. We are freaks, clearly.
Backing up on a point you made
Says
earlier.
the guy who was in juvie at the time. Really, dude.
What? I'm not kidding about that either.
I know.
Is Nina the Aryan supermodel who worked on your campaign?
Oh my God, you're such a perv.
No.
You're talking about his girlfriend.
I'm asking if I
How is
know
that
who
germane
that
to the
is.
conversation?
He mentioned her.
You're talking about Sage. Yeah.
Pardon me, Nina. I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
Nina,
I was just asking.
So Lauren
Nina
was
is,
stalking your campaign, but not for the
I
reasons
think
that
so.
you
I
thought.
think it was not about me.
So
it was never about
let me ask you this question. You've sat here and listened to a former mayor, Mayor Fred, who I'm guessing your politics kind of align with. Am I wrong?
Holy endorsement, Batman.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm being gentle. And then you listen to Graham Crawford, who had a lot of critique for the current mayor. You put your hat in the arena for all of our crazy childhood. We're both kind of in the arena, right? I don't know where all this comes from, but we're engaged. But you actually ran for office. You actually let people vote on your eligibility to be engaged at that level. I admire that. So where are we now as a city? What's the future for you? Are you going to jump back in? Are you going to lead from the sides? Are you going to be part of the revolution that I think is at foot?
Yeah. I mean, well, the revolution is afoot, and I think the city is in a fascinating place right now because I think we had a tremendous amount of momentum under us going into the last election, and
Yeah.
I think the last election with, I think, 36 candidates between mayor and Ward 2 alone was quite exceptional, 88 candidates in total.
Yeah. Made for hell of debate coverage.
It was unreal. I mean, it's
That was a lot of
fever
work.
pitch of just
We had to learn all those
engagement.
names.
Right on the heels of the stadium and
Yeah.
the stadium debate, which was a high point and a low point in the same
Do you think
motion.
that was the catalyst for the engagement? People were furious?
I think it brought people out of the woodwork, no question. I
Yeah.
think it was so polarized. And the thing is, you know, this is a little bit tangential, but, you know, in the city, we often only hear from the people who want radical change. But in the debate about the stadium, we heard people who wanted the radical status quo as well. And so everyone was engaged in the full circle around the issue, and that was
Anyone
really
who uses
exciting.
tangential in this conversation gets to speak all they want, so run with it. It's
Awesome.
a good word. I'm just saying, it's a great word.
Well, it's a safe space. There we
Yeah.
go.
I took
There we go.
Status quo as a
Is
shot
it-
at the current
is it not?
Ward 2 councillor, by the way.
Well, and perhaps, but I
But
mean,
he
you
makes
know,
a good point. The Lair is kind of a safe space. That's
This
part
is
of
a
our
safe
shtick.
space.
It's cozy.
He'll never listen.
We won't.
But
Not-
looking at the Iverwood Stadium rebuild where it is, that is painful status quo, and I'm absolutely with Fred on that. I mean, I think that is such an
But
utter.
says you. And if
Yeah,
PJ
says me.
Mercanti came down from the sky.
And he was here. He said
know, of
the
course.
opposite. He was in the Lair.
But there's something wrong with the downtown left-leaning perspective that says, I know the fucking truth. And
Are you trashing a fellow James Northian?
no, I'm not. I'm not. There's just not an open understanding to a counter opinion.
Comes from the
Also,
Ancaster guy.
Well,
also
and-
has
and-
merit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm
The
glad you-
producer
I'm
just
glad you
said
bring that
comes from
up.
Ancaster, Lauren.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that
I'm
up
a
because
downtown guy.
because I think you're absolutely
Festival.
right. I think you're absolutely right. And, you know, going back to just what I said about the stadium debate. I mean, the stadium debate brought people out from the left, the right, and
Yes.
everywhere in between.
Yeah, it's true.
And that was exciting. And I think what Hamilton needs to really keep the revolution going is for the discussion to keep going, because nothing ends a discussion faster than if only one person is talking. Look at the Occupy movement. The only people talking were the protesters. Everyone else said, "We don't care."
Sure did.
No, they said
And
we
they
don't
all went home.
understand. We don't. They,
That's right.
They
So what are
marginalized
you
them.
doing here exactly? Who are you protesting, and what exact do you want us to? So you know you don't. What? Nobody knew. So everyone just went home. So For Hamilton to really move anywhere, we need the right, the left, the status quo, the absolutely everybody to keep on talking. And that speaks exactly to what I'm doing right now with urbanicity. We want this to be a dialogical forum. We want everyone to talk, everybody talk, to speak to my editorial this month.
Did you say a dialogical forum?
Absolutely.
That's the new tagline for the Lair cast, where the tangential
Somebody has that
dialogical
word of the day
forum.
toilet paper.
Okay, you know what?
I do, actually. I give a copy to
The
Bob.
only game I
too.
recall playing with my mom was she would take out a dictionary and point to a word, and then I'd guess the definition. I'm
This
a
is where
raised
Martinus says me too.
I know.
I used to read
You're
encyclopedias.
just jealous that he and I bonded on some childhood level we didn't realize.
All
We
right,
haven't even
weirdo Christians.
we have not even gotten into religion yet. We haven't even argued Calvinist thought versus the other.
It's funny, I was just having a conversation with Graham after he finished, and as a citizen of Hamilton and just a business person, I'm agreeing. This community is not getting involved enough. You need this whole community to. It's not just about the politicians. That's the problem in this city, and I'm guilty. That's why I'm here. You know, because I need to hear these brilliant voices. I love listening to Graham. I love listening to Martinez. I love listening to ex-mayor Fred, because they have brilliant minds. They represent us, but you know what? They can't represent us if we don't tell them what we want. Sure. And that's what's missing.
I love that you come out to the Laircast so frequently. You and Andrea do, and others, and I call you Moses Times, but Jim Davis does too. Well, you're Baba Booey. You're here for lots of reasons, but
No, I like that they're here.
but yeah, well, for other obvious reasons, we have a good-looking audience. But the point is that you come out because, as you've told me, you could just wait until this gets posted and you could listen to it in your car or whatever, but you get to actually talk to these people before and after, and you get to weigh in during the conversation. And the only criteria to be in the Laircast, which maybe is a high criteria, is you have to be interesting. You have to actually contribute, engage, promote, push, change, whether you're doing it from a critic's perspective or from somebody who ran for politics or somebody who's a humorist or somebody who's a blogger like Jim is. I mean, you have to be engaged, because if you're not, you're just sitting there on the side bitching. And I have no appetite for the bitch.
Yeah.
You know what? I get to bitch because I do stuff. You bitch, Lauren, because you do stuff. You can bitch because you do stuff. Graham can bitch because he does stuff. Jim can bitch because he writes blogs and does stuff. Monica can bitch because she does stuff. I mean, we're in the arena, so we get to complain. Yeah. But we follow it up with action, right? So what is your hope for Hamilton? What is your, and even if you have no hope, say as much, but what, I gave Graham the same thing. I gave, Fred the same. I said, Fred, give advice to Bob. I said to Graham, give us your $5,000 a day, shot. What would you be doing if you were in council? What do you want the city to do?
Yeah. Well, maybe I can go to the very first question you asked there is what's my hope for Hamilton? My hope for Hamilton, I'd say, would be twofold. As someone who ran for political office, as someone who is deeply invested in his community in several ways, I would say my hope for Hamilton is to self-actualize, to really realize itself. And that's ultimately the will of the citizens, and that's what comes out of a collaborative discussion that we all get involved in. Sounds too ethereal for Lauren. I know he's about to
Buddhist,
keel over here, but and then my role in that, it's a democratic process, right? If we all talk, what do we ultimately all come together and decide to do on issues? Now, the stadium, that was not collaborative. That was an utter failure in collaboration. But my own personal vision for where I see Hamilton going, I see light rail. I see this place being a sustainable capital of the world. I see this place really recognizing the fact that we have a cliff running down the middle of our city, and how cool is that?
It's very
that
cool.
we're at the end of Lake Ontario. We're in a beautiful natural setting.
Super cool.
We're poised to be the greatest mid-sized city in North America.
Weren't we, though, in the 1950s?
Well, we were. We absolutely were. You watch that video, the 1947, 1949 promotional video, Portrait of a City. It's just, it's fantastic. It's beautiful.
It starts with the view of Sam Lawrence Park.
Yeah.
And every video I've done for this city over the years has used that view.
Yeah.
And for somebody who has lived in Montreal and lived out in the prairies, when I drove down
Montreal, a city with a real mountain.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? No, Mont Royal is great, but it's not the same as the escarpment, right?
No.
And I love Montreal. Okay, Hamilton doesn't compare with Montreal. I don't care how long I live here. It's never going to quite be Montreal. Let's just be honest. But Hamilton, from a topographical point of view, from a proximity point of view, has tremendous advantage.
Yeah.
And I've said this too many times to count, but my first vision of Hamilton, we were on our way to London. I was staying with some people in Sarnia. I wasn't from I hadn't been in Ontario since I was born in Toronto as a kid. So I didn't know where I was. We were driving somewhere. We came down the 403, and I'm like, wait a sec. Nobody told me there was this big city in the middle of this beautiful, lush, forest rising off of this lake. I saw Hamilton one afternoon in the summer, and I'm like, what is this place? And they're like, oh, it's Hamilton. I'm like, Hamilton? I've heard about that place, but not like this, right?
That's
right. I have a perception of Hamilton that is embedded in me that is different than what I hear so often.
Yeah, we're twice the size of Geneva, Switzerland. We're as large as Tel Aviv, Israel, and yet nobody knows us.
And we have a fantastic view, except for the one that most people travel past, which is over the bridge.
I went to university in Michigan, not University of Michigan, but university in Michigan, and we'd always come back from there, and we'd often carpool, a number of students, and sometimes somebody living in Toronto would have a friend come with them from Chicago or from wherever. The school pulled from all over the United States. And so inevitably we'd always drive the 403 and we'd come down Ancaster around, Meadowlands. And then you round that corner where you see all of a sudden Hamilton just lays out in front of you as you go down the 403 into the city. And there was always this gasp of, whoa, what is that? Is that Toronto? No, that's Hamilton. And it was kind of this moment of that is so cool.
Or the view when you're coming across the York Street Bridge and you see Cootes Paradise, and you say, "Isn't that gorgeous?"
Yeah.
And you said, "And there's a painting in the art gallery of that view from 100 years ago." Oh, stop doing the whack-off gesture.
Highways without development.
Because you've never lived anywhere else.
Why would you say that?
Well, where else have you lived?
I've lived in Montreal
For
2 years.
Okay. So why do you not understand what Hamilton has going for it?
The question is, what is your hope and vision for the city? And we're having a city waterfalls info-fucking-mercial. That's not a vision.
I haven't talked about
we're a bi-level city on some water.
We didn't mention any waterfalls.
No, talked about waterfall
would
once.
be offended by that.
No.
We didn't mention the waterfalls. We talked about the fact that the city is more than it proclaims itself to be. But on this note, and this will really make you mental, and let me try to wrap on this, is that when you talk about a self-actualization, as I understand it's a Buddhist concept. It's the idea that if you're able, and here's the crux of it, is if you're able to give up from want, if you're able to say we have all we need and we need nothing more, then you get to self-actualize. You get to be at peace within your own world. I think and I'm oversimplifying this, Buddhists, please don't email me, but at the end of the day, well, maybe their emails would be relieving and gentle. I don't know. Would they even put words in? I don't know. Maybe it would just be empty emails. Anyways. Maybe it would just be soft, empty emails. But my point is, yeah, exactly. Ding. But what I'm saying is, the whole idea of self-actualization is that to get to a point where you're at peace with yourself, you have to want for nothing. You have to accept what you have and be content with it, and that's the true source of that kind of peace. Yeah. And I see that. I only bring it up because I see that Hamilton, that's the biggest struggle. We can't self-actualize until we stop wanting to be what we're not. We're not Toronto. Yeah. We're not Hamilton circa 1955. Yeah. We're something cool and different and exciting and well-placed and topographically significant. Let's just embrace that, and then maybe we can self-actualize.
Absolutely, with economic opportunities to burn. I mean, the stated vision of the city is, in my mind, it's weak. It's so like whoop-de-doo. Like, who really cares?
Even after Graham Crawford's attempt to operationalize it?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. Because the fact is, you have to read it, and then you have to think, gee, how do you operationalize it? It doesn't say this is who we are, this is what we are. It's kind of like, okay, and that too, and that point too, and a bit of that. Okay. So what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like I actually sat down with Graham at one point, and I had this whole vision for urbanicity written out on a paper. I was really excited about it. Like, I had like values, and I had, I had like 5 or 6 P's, like not just 3 P's. I had like 6 P's.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I was gonna be really good. And then I had my whole vision statement. I had my mission statement.
It was
I had like
almost a nation, not quite, but almost.
Oh, this was an 8.5 by 11 that was just bleeding black, and it was amazing. And I sat down with Graham in his boardroom, and he's like, "This is great." Flipped it upside down and said, "So what's your vision?"
Nice consultant move. I like that shit. I throw stuff right out the window. It's great.
Well, and I kind of was like, could you turn my page back over again? I need to. It's right. It's on the page right there. It's
35 words or less.
Well, this is just it, right? And so this is exactly it. This is the problem with the city vision, and the problem with a lot of the city is, we're that page flipped upside down. It's like, we've got it all written somewhere, but I don't know. You know, and our mayor certainly is not saying this is it. He's not riding the white horse into the sunset and we're following him gloriously. Like, it's kind of, we're all sitting here going, well, I want to do that and I want to do that. And we all have our various values and we're bringing them to the table, but there's nothing that's really grabbable onto, you know? We can't
I hear you.
rally. We're not rallied here.
You know, it's not like we were. And you'll excuse the lame pop culture reference, but I've watched the movie Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon 16 times in the last 3 weeks. I even made Lauren watch it one night at my house for like 10 minutes.
Decepticons.
No, you said I can't watch this movie because I have an affinity for the Decepticons.
Nice.
That's a whole other conversation. You and Megatron, your butts. But there's a moment in the movie, if you've seen it. Have you seen it?
I have, yeah.
Off the top, have you? Anybody else seen that movie? Have you seen it? Seen it? Off the top of the movie, they spend 10 minutes on a montage of the space of the first time man walked on the moon, and they use all these historical clips, and they use their own digital technology to fill out the picture. But essentially, for someone like myself who was not born at that time, they string together the entire sequence of the moon landing. And there's a moment where you see Kennedy's speech where he says, you know, he's in the Oval Office in this scenario they set up where he says, you know what. What's the exact line? Something about move anything, get us to the moon before the Russians. And you see his speech and you see the reaction in real time, the real clips of people responding to the moon landing. And you watch all of that. And if there's anything, Martinus, that to me summarizes that sense of communicating a vision, it was that. It was that we're going to be on the moon. It was the fruition of that. It was the whole bringing around of that. And I think sometimes we have these moments in our mind historically that we've seen or heard about. And we think that's what a leader should be. A leader should be someone who can articulate one clear, simple, you know, cohesive vision and repeat it enough times that we all can say it and spell it and put it on bumper stickers and we'll follow that stuff. I mean, it worked for Obama. That's why he got elected, right?
Yeah.
He said what he said and we all believed in it. So we see that and we think that's what we need even from our mayor.
Yeah.
I think that it's a lofty goal that I have not seen a single mayor deliver for us. And Mayor Bertina, I think part of the crux of the challenge is he has the capacity to be the order of that vision, but there isn't that vision gelled in his mind or in the mind of council for him to orate.
Absolutely, and I'd take it a step further and say we haven't seen a politician give us that kind of a vision in a long time.
Right.
I mean, what's the
Trudeau,
last?
maybe?
That's right, but what's the last great act that we saw come out of the Canadian Parliament? Clarity Act?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
No, I
Useful.
would say it was the Trudeau stuff in the 70s or 80s or
Who was
whatever.
the last person that we thought was a rock star that we wanted to go vote for? When did he wake up on
Brian
election
Mulroney.
day?
Brian Mulroney.
There we go. Okay, so Jack Layton.
But
Yeah,
that's
you
what we
know,
all
isn't that,
love.
isn't that
Yeah,
interesting?
But that's why we wept
That's
for him,
true,
because
too.
we thought he had rock star potential, and we
Exactly.
didn't realize it until it was too late. But when you go back to Trudeau, when you go back to what he did for human rights, when you go back, when Trudeau died, I was at a Croatian thing with my husband, and all the Croatian immigrants stood up and did moments of silence because he got them to Canada. He got them out of the countries they were in.
Right, and that's why we want to celebrate Trudeau?
Yes.
No, but you know what? The thing
Don't
is, Trudeau.
look at him that way. He's beautiful. I have beautiful children from him that you love. Don't look
Trudeau
at him like that.
galvanized people, and that's exciting. And you know what? I didn't vote. I'll say it. I didn't vote NDP in the last election. But what's the one image they always play of Jack Layton on TV when they say, 2011, the year we remember? You know, Jack Layton passed out. What's the one image that they always play?
Him in his white shirt with the rolled up sleeves.
And what's he doing on a stage with his cane, right? He's standing on that cane going, boom, fist pumping his cane.
Yeah.
And everyone around him
You're
goes,
right.
yeah. And the thing is, that was a symbol. This is a man overcoming something, overcoming a lot of stuff, and he's got a vision.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I have differences with that vision, but guess what? It was inspiring. It was really inspiring. And people went out and they said, whew, a lot more inspiring than Gilles Duceppe, and the Orange Crush swept Quebec.
But so when you say to you, and that's why I believe, and Laura and I will fight about this, but Trudeau, if Justin ever does run, we'll give him the vision benefit. We'll give him the mulligan or whatever, the credit, the handicap. We'll believe that he has some of his dad's magic.
Right.
But taking federal politics aside for a second, when you say that we don't have a mayor riding the right horse into the sunset, we don't have that person. I don't think Hamilton's had it since Vic Copps, frankly. Some way he put some kind of magic in the water and people believed. Yeah. Just like Reagan, the GOP is scrambling for Reagan-esque imagery because they haven't had it since Reagan, right? So we're all longing for this kind of paternal / messianic image that's going to bring us somewhere. I don't think that that's real. I don't think that that's realistic. I think that we're a collective of people who all have a little bit of that. And if we can figure out a way to work together more productively, we can make it happen.
That if you're going to bring up Jack Layton in the same conversation with Vic Copps, that their perception changed with them dying in their position.
No question.
Sure. And it is somewhat revisionist that Layton that we remember today is not the Layton we spoke of before he was dead.
Heroes because
and
they
the
died.
Same with Vic Copps.
Same like Marilyn Monroe, right?
And that doesn't, I don't mean that to be disrespectful.
Or JFK,
or Kurt
or
Cobain,
Reagan.
or all these
you
people
got
who
it.
we
Sure, Reagan didn't die in office.
No, he didn't die in office.
And the quintessential moment of the Trudeau funeral, for me as a Canadian, was seeing Fidel Castro be a pallbearer. That speaks to me.
And then sitting next to Jimmy
It
Carter.
did speak to me.
Jesus.
My favorite was Maureen stomping his feet on the stairs of the church saying, "What about me? What about me?"
Don't I matter? Don't I matter? So go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think you're part right in saying that's unrealistic, because I think what we're talking about right now is we're talking about this savior. And I don't think we necessarily are looking for a savior, but I think we are looking for someone that inspires us and that we're proud to say to other people, you know who our mayor is. Mm-hmm. And right now there are not a lot of Hamiltonians that can do that, to be totally frank. And I'm basing this on polls on every website, and I'm talking like the whole spectrum of the media outlets.
I think our mayor has to be what you wanted was the dreamer.
Yeah.
The dreamer that will allow change.
That's
that
right.
will move with change.
Okay, so let me take you on this point, okay? And I'm being a little bit of a devil's advocate here, because I too believe in that kind of inspirational leadership. I too believe that if you believe and you're articulate and you're committed and you're also pragmatic and skilled, you can make things happen. There have been mayors across the country. The mayor of Winnipeg turned it around. The mayor of Alberta right now is causing a bit of a revolution. There have been mayors that have made great things happen. And I too long for that. I really do. But what I'm trying to do is take that, and some people think I should do that someday, and some people think you should do that someday. And anyone that you meet who's
I'm still waiting for your background.
right, and I'm not trying to have hubris here. I get that a lot. I've gotten that for years.
Yeah.
Because if you do believe, and if you are engaged, and if you are articulate, and if you do work hard, people see that as that combo, right? And maybe it's me, maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody else in this room. But what I'm just suggesting is that stuff comes around once a generation. And in the interim, I think as long as we're never going to self-actualize, because if self-actualization is a lack of need, as long as we're needing this messiah for the city, we're never going to self-actualize. Yeah. We're pitting ourselves against our own success.
Yeah.
I saw something. I know this is your interview, but this is about you. So during the Ward 2, there was a candidate that was projecting an image, not being.
Speak the name. Why are we speaking in...
Martinus,
okay,
clearly.
Let's say it.
Was like a young Trudeau. The way he dressed, the way he spoke, the way he stood.
For the record, I've always worn suits. I don't know why this is so profound to everyone.
No.
I mean, what's
I can
young
appreciate...
professional...
Did you say fuddle-duddle, wear a poppy in your panel, in your...
someone told me to wear a carnation,
exactly.
but
then
it
you
messes up your suit.
Then you would have nailed it.
You gave all the cliches of visionary. But you did. This isn't a criticism.
Thank you.
The cliche
I'll take it
is
as
a bit
I'll
of
take
a
it as
criticism.
compliment.
No,
It's
it's
a bit of a
not.
pejorative.
That the way you spoke and the self-assuredness bordering on cockiness, and you presented yourself as a candidate unlike any of the others, in spite of the age difference or otherwise.
The fact that you're going to lose.
I'm trying to make a valid point.
Go.
So you were projecting that well-spoken, well-thought-out, well-dressed, actually concerned with where your hands are on the table, are your shoulders back, like all the kind of shit, not sitting there like an idiot hovered over their notes and all of it, that it didn't mean shit, he didn't win.
And then you know whose fault that was? That was the community's fault, because nobody knew enough. And you know what? I'm going to get back to you, Laura.
Yes.
This true leader, yes, they will lead us to a self-actualization actualization as to what we're talking about. This true leader will be able to inspire us to self-actualize.
You know, I don't disagree with you. I really don't. And I hate the fact that I'm getting cynical.
The secondary point to the great leader, though, because we're talking about getting elected, right? And for the
figured out
record,
why that was the malice and the mustard.
I wasn't planning how I was sitting. I've always worn suits and I've always sat straight up. And I'm sorry that I speak normally. I appreciate that, I do, but you know, I did lose votes because of that, you know, and I actually realized that. But we're talking about electability right now, which is Lauren's favorite topic. But we're talking about electability, so that's all well and good. But once you're elected, a great leader has to lead.
Yes.
And we haven't seen like real leadership, strong, galvanizing leadership that's okay with opposition in a long time.
Yes.
You know, I mean, a perfect example that I just read of a little while ago. Okay, I think it was one of the Roosevelts, right in the end of the 30s, and coming out of the Great Depression, and he stood in Madison Square. He sat in Madison Square Garden, and he thumped his fist on the platform to 20,000 people and said, "Never before have the foes against me stood in such unison." You know, never before, and he's like 20,000 people in downtown New York, never before have people been so angry with one president, but I welcome their hatred.
It is.
And when is the last time a leader stood up there and said, "Dear 20,000 people and the 200 million probably watching,
Do you know what?
I don't care."
The mayor who can handle one of Graham's posters is that mayor.
Exactly.
Okay? Is that person right there.
And you know what? I just read a story about Alexander the Great, which I did not understand, which I had no idea he had this side to him. I knew that, you know, when he was a child, he said to his dad, the emperor, he goes, "Please don't vanquish everyone, you'll leave me nothing to vanquish." I mean, the guy had ambition, right? At 10 years old, you were building nations, he was looking to conquer them. But by the time he was 20...
Building is more productive.
Yeah. Well, by the time he was 20, he went out and he was trying to conquer all these nations, etc. But he he decided to go way past the whole known world that he had. He wanted to get into Asia. Yeah. So he went into India, and he brought his army to this river, and on the other side was this Indian king who had elephant warriors, like literally a phenomenal force. Now, Alexander's army was skilled, and they managed to beat this elephant army. But he was so impressed by the opposition that was put in front of him that when the Indian king got down on his knees in front of Alexander the Great and said, you know, "What do you want of me?" And he said, "All I want is for you to acknowledge me as the King of Kings." And he said, "Well, I will give that to you because you have the superior army." And Alexander said, "I'm so damn impressed with your opposition to me that I'll give you back your kingdom." Mm-hmm. You know, and that's what I'm saying, right? Is that kind of leader. And that's what he was known for. He was known for, one other quick story on this, because I think it's fascinating. He went into this square and he found this Buddhist who was sitting there without any worldly goods, who was sunning himself in the sun. And Alexander looked at him and said, "I'm so impressed by you. For some reason, I like you. Tell me anything you want in the world. I'm Alexander the Great. I'll give it to you." And the guy said, "Get out of my sun. Your shadow is cast." He did. And Alexander said to him, "If I were not Alexander the Great, I would want to be you." Yeah. I'm just saying, there's something about that power and that humility is what we're talking about with that great leader. Someone who can take opponents and still make the vision happen. But back to my cynical self here, guys. Yeah. Martinus, if you don't become that, if Monica doesn't become that, if I don't become that, if whoever doesn't become that, if Lauren doesn't become that, he's pointing at himself here. Can you imagine Lauren as mayor? That'd be fantastic. That'd be fantastic. I would just have to have a lot of money to pay you off for everything. What? What did I say? What? So if that doesn't come, what's our responsibility as citizens to make do otherwise?
To talk. Keep involved. Keep engaged. Make the change in your own corner.
But we can't just criticize the guy who's in the job.
I'm not talking about criticizing. I'm talking about making change. And making change is starting businesses. It's
your film festival,
volunteering,
urbanicity.
There you go. Participate in a festival.
Joey Coleman.
There you go.
Joey Coleman is always making change for the city.
It's be valuable. Be valuable where you are. You know, and I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, Hamilton, I've said this before, and you want to talk about cliche, Lauren, eat this one for breakfast.
You eat cliches for breakfast?
Martinus just offered me breakfast.
Oh, Lauren. Okay, Lauren. And so much more. But this is a cliche I've put. This is right off the campaign trail, and this has been an urbanicity, and I'll say it a million more times because it makes sense. But there are 500,000 people in the city of Hamilton. There are 1 million hands.
Wow.
Do you know what 1 million hands can do if they're applied in some direction?
He does have
even
some Trudeau-esque
even a little bit
What
in
I
its
was
own
saying.
place.
Be there.
Yeah.
Be the change.
Once the
Be
mics
the
are
change
off,
you
I'll
want.
get up and show
Absolutely.
you my
It's-
Martinus impressions.
These are-
circa
Okay, do the
last
Martinus
election.
impressions
No.
now.
These are cliches, but they ring true. There's
But
a
you know
reason
what?
we keep
But
saying
no, you know what? I
them.
like
you know?
putting those numbers in because I don't think of it that way. But let me just tell you that during this conversation, remember how I said maybe a Buddhist out there might email me an empty email? Lauren took it upon himself to text me an empty text bubble because Lauren is the epitome of Zen. You know what, Martinus? I'm so glad we had this chat. And you know what? Let's not leave it at what did you call it? You said a dialogue, a dialoguing
A
form.
dialogical form.
Dialogical form. Let's not leave the Laircast or urbanicity at a dialogical form. Let's do something more with it.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being here, all of you. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Now I want to see the Martinez impression. Let's see it. Let's see it, Lorenzo. Do it. Do it. Do it. You can do it.
Not dressed appropriately.
Oh, do it. Do it.
I know your suit's
You know he's
lacking.
been working on this since the election.
Stands up, looking beautiful.
I think you're jealous.
Eye contact there. My name is Martinus Geleynse. Rhymes with Mackenzie. He looks over here. I'm 26 years old. 27 years old.
26 at the time.
5 businesses, that's right. 5. So it's naming them off like he's got a dick to his ankle, and yeah, and pretty much looking up and down the both sides of the table, going, "Loser brigade, loser brigade." This fucking guy. Every time we smoke, and then we say, "What are you going?" Hell.
So, Lauren, how much of that is you projecting your own insecurities, man?
I'm telling you what I saw. What is that?
I just wish you lived
Well,
in Ward
this is
2.
your
You would have voted
perception
for
of it.
me.
I didn't.
Oh,
I
I know.
hear
You live
that,
in
I hear that,
Ancaster.
and I think fabulous, man. He's got 5 businesses. He's young. Maybe he has a big dick. That's good. You know what? Monica's really loving the last part.
That wasn't. I'm hoping it's that much of a criticism, not.
Oh, maybe Graham's gonna do a poster. That was very funny. Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate. We were rolling on that. Yeah. Do you know what? Moments like this, I wish this was not just an audio podcast. Isn't that the biggest compliment you've ever had?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
should've
Martinus. That was
re-recorded
fun.
Chats in the Lair is a Power Group production. Visit us at powergroup.ca or laircast.com, or check us out on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.